Everyone wants to build the next Facebook, the next Tesla, the next revolutionary app that changes how we live. Alexandr Wang wanted to build a data labeling company. Not exactly the stuff of Silicon Valley dreams, is it? This is a different kind of tech story. It's not about a visionary who saw the future. It's about a pragmatist who saw the present and realized everyone else was ignoring it. June 2025. Alexandr Wang is 28 years old, worth $3.6 billion, and he just sold half his company to Mark Zuckerberg for $14.3 billion. Most founders would be planning their retirement, buying islands, starting vanity projects. Wang? He's just getting started, because while everyone else is racing to build the next ChatGPT, he's quietly building the infrastructure that will power the next 1,000 ChatGPTs. And he's doing it the same way he's always done things, by focusing on the work everyone else thinks is beneath them.
Yeah, no. So it goes back to the three things I mentioned. So there's kind of like three dimensions that they're all competing against one another. One is chips. So who has the most advanced chips? Who's the biggest buildings of chips? Like who has the most chips that they're utilizing? Data. So the kind of body of water. Whose body of water is better, cleaner, healthiest, biggest, etc. And then the last is algorithms. So and this is where the scientists really come in. It's like, okay, who's coming up with the cleverest algorithms, or who has like a trick on an algorithm that somebody else doesn't have? Like who's doing that to basically make the AI learn better off of the data that it has?
While other founders were giving keynotes about disruption, he was in an investor's basement. Literally, his first office was in Dan Levine's basement, building the most boring company in Silicon Valley. Scale AI. Even the name is boring. No exotic spelling, no made-up words, just scale. But to understand why boring wins, we need to understand where this philosophy comes from. And that story starts in the last place you'd expect to find a tech entrepreneur. Los Alamos, New Mexico. Population, 13,000. Claim to fame. Birthplace of the atomic bomb. This is where Alexandr Wang learned the most important lesson of his life.
I grew up in this town called Los Alamos, where there's a national lab there. Did you watch Oppenheimer?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all the New Mexico shots in Oppenheimer, that's exactly where I grew up.
Born in January 1997, Wang grew up in a town that exists because of secrets. Los Alamos was built for the Manhattan Project, and even today, much of what happens there is classified. His parents, both physicists from China, worked at the Los Alamos National Laboratory on projects they couldn't discuss at dinner. Growing up there, you absorb this culture, Wang would later explain. The most important work isn't the work that gets headlines. It's the work that happens in windowless buildings with ID badges and security clearances. Think about it. Everyone knows Einstein's E equals mc squared. But the Manhattan Project succeeded because of thousands of unknown scientists and technicians who turned that equation into reality. They didn't seek fame, they sought results. This would become Wang's operating philosophy, results over recognition. By high school, Wang was already showing signs of his practical genius. While his classmates dreamed of becoming the next Steve Jobs, Wang was fascinated by logistics and efficiency. He won state math competitions not because he loved abstract theory, but because he loved solving concrete problems. At 17, Wang managed to land a summer internship at Quora.
It was pretty eye-opening in the sense that you really get, this is like the Steve Jobs quote that I think every new employee at Apple hears about, which is you sort of realize that everything around you is built by people no smarter or no more capable than yourself. I mean, my colleagues at Quora were brilliant, but it was crazy to think about. This was a site I was spending a lot of time on as a teenager, and it was built by a team of 100 or so people, and it was this very empowering experience.
Quora in 2014 was a rising star in Silicon Valley. The question and answer platform had been founded by former Facebook executives and was attracting top talent from across the tech world. For a 17-year-old from New Mexico, it was like being called up to the major leagues. But Wang didn't spend his internship starstruck. He spent it noticing inefficiencies. We had these brilliant engineers, Wang recalls, people who'd graduated from Stanford, MIT, Carnegie Mellon, and they were spending hours every day manually categorizing answers, marking which ones were helpful, which ones were spam. I did the math. We were paying people $200,000 a year to do work that could be done for $20 an hour. It was insane. Wang built a simple system to outsource this work to contractors. Nothing fancy. Just a basic interface that let remote workers categorize content while engineers focused on engineering. In fall 2014, Wang enrolled at MIT. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology was everything Los Alamos wasn't. Famous, prestigious, full of people trying to change the world. Wang hated it. Not the education, he clarifies. The education was excellent, but the culture. Everyone was trying to be the next Elon Musk. They wanted to build rockets and cure cancer and create artificial general intelligence. I wanted to optimize data workflows. His freshman year, Wang took graduate-level machine learning courses. While his classmates were fascinated by neural network architectures and algorithmic breakthroughs, Wang kept noticing the same thing. Everyone spent 90% of their time preparing data and 10% on actual machine learning. We'd have these 3-hour labs, he remembers. 2 hours and 45 minutes would be cleaning data, labeling images, formatting inputs. 15 minutes would be running the actual algorithm. Everyone pretended the algorithm was the important part. But if you can't feed it clean data, the best algorithm in the world is useless. His professors weren't interested in this observation. Data preparation wasn't computer science. It was just work. But Wang couldn't let it go. He started researching how major AI projects handled data. What he found shocked him. ImageNet, the dataset that powered the deep learning revolution, required 49,000 people to label 14 million images over 3 years. The Stanford researchers who created it spent more time managing crowd workers than doing research. Self-driving car companies were hiring PhDs to draw boxes around pedestrians. Google was paying engineers 6-figure salaries to categorize search results. It was like discovering that NASA was making astronauts wash their own rockets, Wang says. Just this massive, industry-wide inefficiency that everyone accepted as normal. Then came March 2016. The moment everything changed. Wang was in his dorm room, watching the live stream with dozens of other MIT students. AlphaGo, Google DeepMind's Go-playing AI, was facing Lee Sedol, the world champion. Go is exponentially more complex than chess. There are more possible Go games than atoms in the observable universe. For decades, experts said AI beating humans at Go was impossible. AlphaGo won 4 games to 1. Everyone was freaking out, Wang's roommate recalls. Talking about the singularity, AI taking over, all that stuff. But Alex was just sitting there reading the technical paper. What Wang found in that paper would change his life. AlphaGo was trained on 30 million positions from 160,000 games. Each position had to be labeled, categorized, evaluated by humans.
I think we're going to start seeing, again, similar kinds of bottlenecks where the amount of human experts, who are really what's needed to fuel this sort of like Jeff stages, human experts become GPUs in their own right. That basically the number and quality of human experts who are fueling model improvement is going to, in and of itself, become another supply chain bottleneck for the industry.
The bottleneck for AI development wasn't the algorithm. It was actually just data. That's when I realized, Wang says, everyone's focused on the AI, but someone needs to focus on the data, and nobody wants to do it because it's boring. That night, Wang made a decision. He was dropping out of MIT. My parents were not happy, he admits. You don't drop out of MIT, especially not when your parents are immigrant scientists who sacrificed everything for your education. But Wang had seen the future, and the future needed data. Summer 2016, Y Combinator, the legendary startup accelerator that launched Airbnb, Dropbox, and Stripe. Wang showed up with no product, no team, and no business plan. Just an observation. AI companies waste enormous amounts of time and money on data preparation. My application was basically 3 sentences, Wang recalls. AI needs data. Data needs humans. I'll organize the humans. He was accepted. Barely. In that same YC batch was Lucy Guo, another dropout engineer who'd worked at Quora. She'd made the same observation about data inefficiency and had similar ideas about solving it. We were the 2 most boring people in our batch, Guo would later say. Everyone else was building rockets or curing diseases. We were building a data labeling company.
AI is all about, basically programming computers to be able to start thinking like humans. So, traditional computer programming, it's pretty bare bones. It's not very smart. And so AI is all about, can you build algorithms that start to be able to think like people and replicate some of the, our brains are these incredible things, and that's evolution. That's just biology that created our brains. And so it's all about how can we build something similar to that or replicate it using computers and machines.
Their first investor pitch was a disaster. Wang and Guo walked into a conference room full of venture capitalists expecting to hear about the next world-changing technology. Instead, they got a presentation about data labeling economics. We showed them spreadsheets, Wang recalls. Cost per labeled image, throughput rates, quality control metrics. Their eyes glazed over. The VCs asked typical Silicon Valley questions. What's your moat? How is this defensible? Where's the technology? Wang's answers were brutally honest. We don't have a moat. It's not defensible. There is no technology. We're not building technology, Wang explained. We're building infrastructure. It's like asking what technology Walmart uses. The answer is, who cares? They move products efficiently. We move data efficiently. 23 investors passed. Then they met Dan Gross. It was the worst pitch I'd ever seen, Gross recalls. No vision, no disruption, no changing the world. Just, we'll do the boring stuff so you don't have to. I wrote a check for $4.5 million immediately. Why? Because Gross had been an engineer. He knew that every AI company spent most of its time on data preparation. And he knew that whoever solved that problem would become indispensable. Dan Levine from Accel Partners not only invested, but offered them his basement as their first office. I figured if they were willing to work in my basement, they were serious about keeping costs down, Levine explains. The early days of Scale AI were unglamorous beyond belief. Wang and Guo sat in a basement, personally labeling thousands of images to understand the workflow. We needed to understand the job before we could optimize it, Wang explains. So we did it ourselves, hour after hour. Click, label, submit. Click, label, submit. They discovered that data labeling wasn't just tedious, it was complex. Different types of data required different approaches. Images needed bounding boxes. Text needed categorization. Video needed frame-by-frame annotation. Everyone thought data labeling was like flipping burgers, Wang says, but it's more like running a restaurant. You need systems, quality control, specialization. They started hiring contractors on Amazon Mechanical Turk. Not to replace them, but to test workflows. Wang obsessed over metrics. How many images could someone label per hour? What caused errors? How could they improve accuracy without sacrificing speed? Alex would spend hours analyzing a single labeler's performance, recalls Scale's first employee. Not to criticize them, but to understand how to make their job easier. Within months, they'd built a system. Not fancy AI algorithms, just smart workflows that made human labelers more efficient. Software that caught common errors. Interfaces that reduced clicks. Training materials that improved accuracy. It was boring. It was methodical. It worked. By 2017, Silicon Valley was in the grip of self-driving car mania. Every major tech company was building autonomous vehicles. Billions of dollars poured into the space. but they all hit the same wall: teaching cars to see. We had the best engineers in the world, a former Cruise executive explains. We had unlimited funding. We had everything except labeled data. Our million-dollar engineers were spending their time drawing boxes around stop signs. It was insane.
What are you doing for Waymo, Cruise, and Uber?
Yeah, so what we've done at scale is built the data platform for AI. So AI is really built on top of data, and these algorithms require billions and billions of examples of labeled data to be able to perform in a safe or reliable way. So what we've done is built a platform that allows these companies to get the data they need to be able to build these algorithms in a safe and reliable way, and then they use the data to build their self-driving car.
Scale's pitch to automakers was simple. You're paying engineers $300,000 a year to label data. We'll do it for 1/10 the cost with better quality. General Motors signed first, then Uber's self-driving unit. Then came the call that changed everything. Apple wanted to meet. Project Titan, Apple's secret car project, was hemorrhaging money. They'd hired the best automotive engineers, the best AI researchers, the best of everything. But they were drowning in unlabeled sensor data. The meeting was surreal, Wang recalls. Here's Apple, the most valuable company in the world, and they're asking a 20-year-old dropout to solve their data problem. Scale's solution was elegant. They'd build custom tools for Apple's specific needs while deploying thousands of trained contractors to label the data. Apple signed a contract worth over $10 million. That was the moment we knew we were onto something big, Wang says. If Apple needed us, everyone would need us. But Wang wasn't satisfied with just autonomous vehicles. He saw a bigger opportunity and a bigger threat.
I don't think we should rest easy on that because military implementations of AI are going to be incredibly important. We need to ensure that in this next phase that the US is both economically dominant, but also has military leadership as well when it comes to artificial intelligence.
The phone call that would define Scale AI's future came from an unexpected source, the Department of Defense. Mr. Wang, we'd like to discuss your data labeling capabilities for a defense project. Project Maven was the Pentagon's controversial initiative to use AI for analyzing drone footage. Google had just pulled out after employee protests. The ethics were murky. The politics were toxic. Wang didn't hesitate. People called me a war profiteer, he admits, but I grew up in Los Alamos. I know what happens when America falls behind in critical technology. The decision to work with the military was controversial within Scale. Several employees quit. Protesters showed up at their offices. Tech journalists wrote scathing articles. Wang addressed the company in an all-hands meeting. We're not building weapons, we're labeling data. That data helps the military make better decisions, more accurate decisions, decisions that could save lives, both American and foreign. If we don't do this, someone else will. And I'd rather it be us with our ethics and our standards than someone who doesn't care. Not everyone was convinced, but Wang pressed forward. Scale AI began working on military contracts, applying the same rigorous approach they used for self-driving cars to defense applications. The technical challenges were similar, explains a Scale engineer who worked on defense projects. Instead of teaching cars to recognize pedestrians, we were teaching drones to recognize vehicles. The ethics were complicated, but the work itself was straightforward. Later that year, Wang took a trip that would reshape his worldview. A Scale investor organized a tour of Chinese AI companies. What Wang saw there alarmed him. I expected to see advanced algorithms, breakthrough research, Wang recalls. Instead, I saw warehouses full of people labeling data, hundreds of thousands of them. The scale was staggering. While US companies struggled to hire dozens of data labelers, Chinese companies employed hundreds of thousands. Entire cities had been built around data labeling. They weren't smarter than us, Wang realized. They just understood that data is the bottleneck, and they were solving it with brute force. Wang visited company after company. Each one showed the same pattern: massive data labeling operations supporting AI development. When he asked about military applications, his hosts changed the subject. That's when I understood, Wang says. This isn't just about business. It's about national competitiveness, and we're losing.
In 2018, I visited China. One of our investors organized this trip to understand the Chinese tech ecosystem. And in one of the companies, a Chinese facial recognition company, you walk in the lobby and there's a giant screen that shows like a video feed of the lobby, and your face immediately gets recognized as you walk in. And real time, you see your face be recognized. It recognizes who you are, your major demographics, like all this like very dystopian tech demo. And this was back in 2018, and basically realized that other countries were going to be, particularly China, was going to be very, very dedicated in using artificial intelligence to power their country's ambitions, let's say. And this was, this is well reported. They use facial recognition technology very actively to suppress Uyghurs and for in building a global surveillance state. And it became pretty clear that, if you believe that AI is going to be one of these critical technologies, there had to be American companies who could help bridge the gap between Silicon Valley and DC, and could help bridge the gap between this incredible wellspring of technology and innovation that was happening in San Francisco, happening in Silicon Valley, and bring that technology to the US government to actually empower America to stay ahead, to stay in a leadership position. Right?
Wang returned from China with a new mission. Scale AI wasn't just a business. It was a strategic asset in an AI arms race. I started calling everyone, Wang recalls. Generals, congressmen, tech leaders. The message was simple. Data is the new oil, and China is Saudi Arabia. We need to catch up. Most people didn't want to hear it. The idea that American AI supremacy depended on data labeling seemed beneath them. They wanted to talk about algorithms and compute power, not the mundane work of annotating images. But Wang persisted. He testified before Congress, wrote op-eds, met with Pentagon officials. Slowly, the message began to sink in. Scale AI was no longer just a startup. They were powering AI development across industries, autonomous vehicles for GM, Uber, and Apple, defense applications for the Pentagon, e-commerce for Amazon and Pinterest, robotics for Toyota and Boston Dynamics. Revenue grew from $7 million in 2018 to $100 million in 2020. They raised funding at increasingly high valuations, $325 million in 2020, $1 billion in 2021. Wang becoming the youngest self-made billionaire at age 24. The Forbes Billionaire list in 2021 featured a new name, Alexandr Wang, age 24, net worth $1 billion. He was the youngest self-made billionaire in the world. The media loved the story. MIT dropout becomes billionaire. David versus Goliath. The American dream personified. Wang hated all of it. The money doesn't matter, he told reporters. The work matters, and we're just getting started. While other young billionaires bought sports teams and super yachts, Wang reinvested everything back into scale. He expanded operations, hired more engineers, built better tools. And that's the Alexandr Wang way. While everyone else chases headlines, he chases results. And he's just getting started. Want to see more videos like this? Like, subscribe to our channel, and comment with what you want to see next.